Michael Collins sat in a high-rise office in Manhattan, behind a massive desk of polished oak. The city skyline glowed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He wore an expensive grey suit, his dark hair combed back neatly, a gold watch glinting on his wrist. Despite the luxury, his face looked tired, lines around the eyes, a stiffness in his jaw. On his desk, resumes lay scattered like fallen leaves. He flipped another resume, sighing in boredom, when one name jolted him awake: Katherine Morris. He leaned closer, his hazel eyes narrowing. Clicking the digital file, a headshot opened on the screen. An African-American woman in her 30s, professional, composed, with intelligent brown eyes. Michael's breath caught. Memories stirred. Michael leaned back, pressing his palms together under his chin. Katherine Morris. He had not heard her name in a decade, but her face triggered a storm of guilt. In his mind, the professional woman from the photo blurred into a younger version. Shy, quiet, often overlooked. Her curls tied back into a loose bun, oversized jacket slipping off her shoulders, a worn-out bag across her chest. He was back in Columbia University, junior year. The classroom was large, with rows of wooden desks and tall windows letting in pale daylight. Students laughed, chatted, and scrolled through their phones. At the far back sat Katherine, skin warm-toned, hair pulled tight, wearing the same faded denim jacket every day. Her posture was small, but her eyes never left her notebook, where she scribbled notes with a steady hand. Michael, on the other hand, was untouchable. Tall, athletic build, sharp jawline, green eyes full of arrogance. He strode into class in designer sneakers and a leather jacket, keys to his red sports car dangling from his fingers. His friends, other wealthy kids, flocked around him, laughing too loudly. Professors rolled their eyes but never punished him. His father's money and name were shields against consequence. It always struck Michael that Katherine lived in another universe entirely. She wore clothes that looked second-hand, shoes with worn soles, her backpack frayed at the seams. She rarely spoke, and when she did, her voice was soft, careful. But she was brilliant, always the first to finish assignments, her projects detailed and creative. To Michael and his friends, she was an easy target, someone too vulnerable to fight back. By spring, the class faced their biggest challenge, the project defense. Students had to design a residential complex with full architectural plans. Katherine spent nights in the library, hair messy, eyes tired but burning with determination. Her sketches were stacked high, every measurement precise. She carried her drawings in a cardboard tube covered in tape. Michael's approach was different. He hired a freelance designer to create half the project. He spent most of his time at parties, confident his father's connections would smooth the way. His design was flashy, a futuristic glass tower with luxury interiors, more art than architecture. He rehearsed his smirk more than his presentation. The day of the defense arrived. Katherine walked nervously to the front, adjusting her glasses. Her hands trembled slightly as she unrolled her blueprints on the board. She spoke softly at first, explaining her design: affordable housing with green courtyards, safe playgrounds, and sustainable materials. As she continued, her confidence grew. The professor nodded with approval, impressed by her careful thought. Then came Michael. He strolled to the front with a cocky grin, tossing his leather jacket onto a chair. His friends whistled and clapped. He unrolled his glossy project, a sleek skyscraper shimmering with glass and steel. It looked dramatic but lacked calculations. The professor frowned slightly, asking questions about cost and practicality. Michael brushed it off with lines like, "Money is no object in true architecture." The room was quiet when Katherine raised her hand. "Excuse me," she said softly. All eyes turned to her. "How did you solve the ventilation problem in your glass structure? In summer, it would turn into a greenhouse." Michael froze. He hadn't thought about it. His designer hadn't included it. Heat crawled up his neck. Instead of admitting the gap, Michael's pride lashed out. He smirked, then sneered, "Maybe you should learn to dress decently before questioning me. Look at her jacket, straight from a thrift store. Does she even belong here?" His friends burst into laughter, clapping and hooting. Katherine's face flushed red, her lips trembling. Michael's voice grew harsher. "Maybe you should go back to whatever small town you came from. This is Columbia University, not a shelter. People like you don't belong among us. His friends cheered, one of them whistling. Others in the class turned away in discomfort. Tears welled up in Katherine's eyes, but she refused to speak. Finally, Katherine grabbed her bag with shaking hands. Silent tears rolled down her cheeks as she rushed out of the classroom, her old shoes squeaking against the floor. In the hallway, the sound of her sobbing echoed faintly. For a moment, even Michael's friends looked unsettled, though none dared speak. Professor Simmons slammed his notebook shut. His grey brows furrowed, eyes blazing with anger. "Collins," he barked. "Out. Now. Straight to the dean's office. This behavior is disgusting." Michael forced a smirk, but the shame burned in his chest. For once, the professor's voice carried more weight than his father's money. Michael left Columbia with little consequence. His father's name opened every door, and within months he was working in the family's construction firm. By his late 20s, he had wealth, luxury, and influence. His red sports car was replaced with a black Mercedes, his leather jackets with tailored suits. But behind the surface, his arrogance only grew. In his early 30s, Michael married a socialite. Beautiful, glamorous, always perfectly dressed. They had a daughter together, and for a time life looked complete. But cracks formed quickly. She grew bored of him, unimpressed by his inherited power, restless for more. The marriage collapsed in bitterness, leaving Michael divorced and alone with partial custody of his daughter. Nights grew long in his Manhattan penthouse. Michael often sat by the window with a drink, staring at the skyline that once thrilled him. The silence was heavy. He thought of the people he had pushed aside, friends, employees, even classmates. And one face kept coming back more than any other. Katherine's, that day in the lecture hall, tears streaming down her cheeks. For the first time in his life, Michael felt regret that money couldn't erase. His arrogance in college, his cruel laughter, his friends cheering, it replayed in his mind like a punishment. He realized how small he had been, hiding behind wealth while tearing down someone stronger. And now, a decade later, Katherine's resume was in front of him. She was no longer the shy, quiet student. She was one of the most respected architects in the city. Her projects had won awards, praised for being practical yet beautiful. Her portfolio was filled with sustainable housing, innovative designs, and buildings that people loved to live in. Michael leaned forward, pressing the intercom. "Call her," he told his secretary, his voice lower than usual. "Set an interview." As he spoke the words, his chest tightened with a strange mix of dread and hope. When Katherine walked into his office days later, Michael almost didn't recognize her. She stood tall, wearing a navy suit, her natural curls styled neatly. Her posture was confident, her eyes steady and calm. She carried a leather portfolio under her arm and moved with quiet authority. "Miss Morris," Michael greeted, standing awkwardly. She gave a polite nod, her expression unreadable. "Do you remember me?" he asked. Her lips curved faintly. "Of course. Michael Collins. Columbia University." Her voice was calm, professional, not a hint of bitterness. Michael cleared his throat, nerves he hadn't felt in years. "Before we discuss work, I need to say something. I was awful to you. Back then. I humiliated you. I was arrogant, cruel, and wrong." His voice cracked slightly. "I've thought about it for years. I am sorry, Katherine." Katherine looked at him steadily. "You destroyed me that day," she admitted softly. "I left class crying, I skipped lectures for a week. I questioned whether I even belonged at Columbia. But it forced me to grow. I learned to fight harder, to prove myself. And in the end, I did." Michael lowered his eyes. "Life humbled me. Divorce. Loneliness. Raising my daughter half the time. Success doesn't fill the emptiness when you've hurt people. I realized money and privilege don't make you strong. They just hide weakness." They shifted to her portfolio. Katherine laid out her designs: eco-friendly housing, affordable apartments with innovative layouts. Michael studied them, nodding slowly, deeply impressed. For once, admiration replaced arrogance in his eyes. "You're the best candidate I've seen," Michael said finally. "The project is huge, But I know you can handle it. The job is yours, if you want it. Katherine looked at him for a moment, then smiled faintly. I'll take it. As she stood to leave, Michael hesitated. One last question. Did you forgive me? Katherine paused, then turned back. Long ago, she said. Anger would have kept me small. Forgiveness let me grow. People change, Michael. What matters is who you are now. Months later, their project launched to acclaim. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Michael stood before the press. This success belongs to Katherine Morris, he declared. She stood beside him, composed and proud. Their handshake this time was different. No longer student and bully, but equals. For Michael, it wasn't just professional triumph. It was redemption.